Today, we're going to talk about something fascinating. It's the story of how a whole generation of physicists, people who are armed with really elegant mathematics and this, deep desire to understand the universe, well, they ended up on Wall Street. And there, they tried to tame the absolute chaos of financial markets. It's really a tale of clashing cultures, brilliant insights, and one really profound question. And this is that question, right, from Emanuel Derman's memoir, My Life as a Quant. This is the central mystery we're going to unpack. Can the very same tools that decode the cosmos, can they really predict and control the world of money? All right, let's get into it. So, to really get why this all happened, you first have to understand the world these physicists came from. For them, theoretical physics, it wasn't just a job, it was almost a religion. It was this sacred quest for eternal truths about how the universe fundamentally works. This quote from Derman just says it all, doesn't it? The goal wasn't to get rich or famous. The ambition was to achieve a kind of immortality by discovering a new law of nature. It was this transcendental calling, a way to get closer to, the mind of God, so to speak. So what on earth could possibly pull these thinkers away from a pursuit like that? Well, reality. Reality intervened. A perfect storm of events in the 1970s created this huge push out of academia and an equally huge pull towards a very, very unlikely destination, Wall Street. And what's so wild here is how these three things just converged at the exact same time. First, the academic job market for physicists completely falls apart, leaving all these brilliant minds with literally nowhere to go. At the same time, the oil crisis throws the financial markets into total chaos, and Wall Street is desperately looking for a new way to manage all this risk. And then, boom, the Black-Scholes model gets published. A mathematical, physics-like solution just drops out of the sky. It was a perfect alignment of supply and demand. And just like that, this new tribe was born. They even got a nickname, POWs, Physicists on Wall Street. You have these brilliant outsiders now operating deep in what they saw as enemy territory, and they were armed with a secret weapon. So what was this secret weapon? Well, it was the power of financial modeling. It was a way to bring mathematical order to the seemingly random, crazy world of finance, and it all centered on pricing one particularly tricky thing. And that thing was the derivative security. Like a stock option. It gives you the right to buy a stock at a future date for a set price, but you're not obligated to. So it has this potentially unlimited upside, but your downside is totally limited to whatever you paid for the option. It's this asymmetry that makes it so powerful and so incredibly difficult to put a price on. This was the billion-dollar question. Really, how do you put a fair price on a bet about the future? It's a problem that seems totally custom-made for people who are trained to model the most complex systems in the entire universe. And the answer was the Black-Scholes model. And look, this wasn't just a small step forward. The economist Steve Ross called it the single most successful theory in all of economics. It absolutely, completely revolutionized the financial world. So how does this thing even work? Well, Derman explains it with this brilliant fruit salad analogy. So the goal is to price a complex thing, an option, by basically manufacturing it from simpler ingredients, which are just stock and cash. Think about pricing a can of fruit salad. You just add up the cost of the raw fruit inside, right? The apples, the oranges. The big secret of Black-Scholes was realizing an option could be perfectly manufactured from a precise mix of stock and cash. But here's the trick, and this is the genius part. The recipe isn't fixed, it's dynamic. You have to constantly readjust the mix of stock and cash as the stock price moves around. And the result? The formula is the ultimate recipe. It tells you the exact mix you need at any given moment, and therefore it tells you the option's fair price. The impact was just staggering. This quote illustrates the revolution perfectly. Before Black-Scholes, options were these exotic, mysterious things. After, they became a standard commodity, like water, that could be manufactured and sold by anyone who had the recipe. But knowing the recipe and actually working in the kitchen, those are two very, very different things. When these cerebral physicists arrived on Wall Street, they collided with a completely different species, the trader. And this slide just breaks down that culture clash perfectly. Traders, they are paid to act. It's all visceral, fast-thinking, gut decisions. They thrive on the chaos and the interruptions of the trading floor. Quants, on the other hand, are paid to think. They're much more like academics. They want to work on one single problem from beginning to end, deeply and without any interruptions. I mean, these two styles were absolutely bound to create some friction.
And yeah, it led to some pretty hilarious moments. Derman tells this amazing story of a head trader walking between two quants who were just deep in thought, and he clutches his head and yells about the force field of intense concentration being too much for him. It just perfectly captures that mix of awe and total mockery that the traders felt.
So here's the crucial point. Why were they seen this way? Derman has this theory that quants were non-kosher because they just didn't fit into any of Wall Street's established categories. They weren't pure traders, they weren't pure tech guys, they were these strange hybrids, and that made the old guard deeply, deeply uncomfortable. Derman learned this lesson the hard way. Early on, he was carefully working on a model like a physicist would, trying to make it absolutely perfect. His boss just got impatient and told him that on Wall Street, speed and practicality crush theoretical elegance every single time. It was a complete reversal of every value he was used to from his life in academia. And this brings us right back to the deeper questions that Derman wrestles with throughout the book. After years of building these complex models, he started to wonder, was this whole enterprise just a misguided attempt to force the elegant certainty of physics onto the messy, chaotic, all-too-human world of finance? Because when you get right down to it, value isn't a law of nature, is it? It's determined by human fear and human greed, by hope and panic. How can you possibly capture the madness of crowds in a clean, elegant mathematical formula? Which, of course, leads to an even more fundamental question. Physics discovers timeless laws that are always true. Quantitative finance builds models, which are just temporary, flawed approximations of human behavior. So can we even really call it a science? And that leaves us with the final and most provocative thought from the book. These brilliant minds who hacked finance, were they pioneering scientists charting a brand new frontier? Or were they cranks, trying to impose an order on a system that simply doesn't have one? That is a question that still hangs over Wall Street to this day.